This wedding was an assignment for my Religion 2 class in Catholic school.
This one's wife. Blasted again. Why does she never stick at anything? Hello, I'm HG TUDOR. This one's wife has been criticised again. Well, what do you expect, HG, I hear you say. It's a day with a Y in it. The New York Post reports, this one's wife has been labelled inadvisable and enormously shallow by royal biographer Tina Brown for kickstarting several business ventures simultaneously. The Duchess of Sussex has rolled out a series of new businesses in recent months, from her new Netflix show and lifestyle brand to a shiny new podcast and digital storefront. But it seems as though the suit's alum's professional strategy has rubbed some critics the wrong way, including Brown, who served as the editor-in-chief of Vanity Fair from 1986 to 1992. Her problem is just that she is so ADD. She just never stops making announcements and never really follows through, Brown, age 71, said on the Mixed Signals for Semaphore Media podcast on Friday. It's like, I'm going to do a cooking show. Nah, I'm going to be a podcaster, and hello, I've got a beauty line. It's like, just do one of those things. Do it really well, and then do something else, Brown added. She's weirdly panic-stricken in her business model. This one's wife recently released her new podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder. The announcement was closely followed by the release of her digital storefront, for which she has already been accused of monetizing the monarchy. The Duchess also launched her lifestyle brand, As Ever. Maybe she's just so devoid of self-confidence that she's always trying to be a sort of instant Beyoncé or instant Michelle Obama without the background that has built those people. You know, those very, very strong structures on which they stand. So that's really been her problem. Brown said of the Duchess, if she'd simply succeeded at one thing and then done another thing, she'd be in a much, much better place. But she's enormously shallow in her approach to the work she does. Well, those are the observations about Tina Brown, who is an habitual critic of this one's wife. She explains, there are this one's wife lovers and this one's wife haters. The palace just doesn't really think about this one's wife anymore. It's almost like she's gone. And I think the tragic aspect is Harry. Brown also said she believes that Markle is inadvisable. She's had a lot of good people willing to give advice to her, but what has irritated the people who do, and big people who do, is that they sit with her and they give her very good advice, and she kind of appears to be extremely motivated by it. And then she just doesn't do it and does something else. She's worn out her advisory circle, who just feel like, well, what's the point? She's not going to do it. And unfortunately, she is the major advisor to Harry. She doesn't take advice and he only takes hers. That's not a very good combination, really, for either of them. Thus, Tina Brown's observations about this one's wife, thinking that she seeks to be an instant Beyoncé, or an instant Michelle Obama, that she lacks self-confidence. Well, interestingly, this one's wife doesn't lack self-confidence. Indeed, her narcissism gives her oodles of confidence, albeit misplaced. It makes her believe that she is a brilliant influencer, a fantastic actress, a successful content creator. It makes her believe that she will be a marvellous and effective politician, that she is a bananatarian and all the other things that she's tried her hand at. It is true that she doesn't listen to advice. This is because her narcissism tells her that she knows best. She is the expert. She is the guru. And therefore, if you tell her something which doesn't accord with her view of herself, that's a threat to control. And the simplest thing is to deny it, i.e. dismiss it, reject it, which is the first line of the twin lines of the narcissistic defence. If you suggest an alternative way of doing things to this one's wife, and it doesn't accord with what she thinks she should be doing, you are viewed not as a constructive advisor, you're viewed as a threat to control, and therefore your suggestion is jettisoned. But what is behind this inability to never stick at anything? Is it ADD, as Tina Brown thinks to suggest? Is it because she lacks confidence? Well, you won't be surprised to learn that it is as a consequence of her narcissism. And I have seen on multiple occasions people wondering, why is it that this one's wife fails to follow through on things? Why is it that she's like some kind of butterfly, flitting from one interest to another? Why doesn't she just see things through? And the answer is, it is because she is a narcissist. Now, there are certain narcissists that will follow through on things, and that is invariably as a consequence of the fact that they have an actual talent which the narcissism harnesses. So, for instance, it leads to a long and fruitful football career because the individual is actually very good at football. So the narcissism harnesses that natural ability in the pursuit of the prime aims. But for many narcissists, there is nothing there. And this is certainly the case with this one's wife. No charisma, no talent, no ability. And therefore, her narcissism has to do what it can with what's available to it. That means that there is no substance to actually deliver on things. But the narcissism decides, well, in actual fact, we don't need to. Why? Well, this is because, as you know, her narcissism pursues the prime aims. It must control, draw fuel, gain character traits and residual benefits. And that's all that matters. Accordingly, if this one's wife is able to gain control by announcing a 40 by 40 plan, and it draws fuel, and she can gain some character traits from it, and it generates some residual benefits, purely through the announcement, then why follow up on it? There's no need. The narcissism simply looks at it and states, we needed control in that moment, we got control in that moment with the announcement, there's no need now to follow up. Indeed, following up would result in a use of resources and assets which isn't commensurate with the gain, so let's not bother. There is no talent or ability there to be harnessed. Accordingly, the announcement does what it is meant to do, gain the prime aims. Thus, there's no need to follow up. Ditto with the announcement of American Riviera Orchard. It was to overshadow Prince William, to nullify the threat to control that he posed, to assert control over an audience. It was used to nullify the threat to control by the Princess of Wales appearing at Trooping the Colour. There was no need to actually deliver anything, so it didn't. And we've seen this time and time again, because her narcissism is naturally structured in the pursuit of the prime aims, so that is all that it looks for. And if it can do so in the moment by just making announcements, then that's all that happens. And then it's on to a different announcement and a different announcement. And this will continue to work so long as there are different announcements that can be used and an audience that is easily conned. The problem that she has got is that she's going to ultimately run out of pronouncements that she can make, and the audience only watches because it's enjoying the car crash. This comes back to, again, why Instagram, as I told you some time ago, will prove her undoing. She needs to make the announcements, and the press, most of it, will tire of facilitating that. She won't be able to afford the PR puff pieces. But her narcissism will always direct her to make these pronouncements through Instagram. Here's me in the garden. Here's me with a watering can. Here's me with a supposed friend. Here's a little bit of one of the children. Here's something on Valentine's Day. Here's some jam. Here's some spread. Here's an unboxing. On and on and on and on. Because like a drug addict that continues to chase the high, her narcissism causes her to act in the moment without any thought or joined up thinking as to the overall picture. Accordingly, she doesn't think about how it makes her look to flit from one project to another, because that isn't relevant, because her narcissism deems that it's not relevant. But what it means is that anybody else that looks at it starts to see the big picture and realises this woman never delivers, which means so many organisations that might have partnered with her think, what's the point? Not only is she unpopular, she never sees anything through. Why would we want to hire somebody who never delivers? Look how long it took her to deliver for Spotify, and then it was only one crap season. Look what the output for Netflix was. And this is all driven by her narcissism. And, as I've told you so many times before, give the narcissist enough rope and they'll hang themselves. And this is particularly true with the lesser and mid-range narcissist, this one's wife being a mid-range narcissist. The outcome is she gets criticism from Tina Brown. She's criticised by many people across mainstream media and social media for her inability to see things through. And that inability is all driven by the expedience of her narcissism, its desire to succeed in the moment, which means there's no substance to cause her to continue to follow through, follow up, or deliver. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.